All right, everyone. Welcome in to the Insta Review Podcast, Week 11. For the first time ever, multi-streaming on 3 separate platforms, our YouTube page, our Twitch page, and our Twitter page, and debuting at a brand new time on Tuesday evenings at 10 p.m. No longer competing on Monday Night Football. We can now sit back and dissect everything that has happened in the previous week. I'm Nicholas Hill, your host. I am joined by Leon, Taryan, Conor Kennedy, and Oscar Oswego. Orengo, guys, how excited are you for the new era of Insta Review podcasts?
Very, very excited.
Pumped. Looking forward to see some new audience members.
Or absolutely. And definitely, if you're joining us tonight, tell us where you're watching us from. If you're watching us from our YouTube, from our Twitter, or from our Twitch. That we'd like to know where you guys are watching us and how you're enjoying our content. And definitely, if you have any NFL questions, leave them on. Definitely type them out, and we will react to them throughout the show. All right, guys, it is time to talk some NFL news. It's time to talk about our key takeaways. We'd like to begin every show just with a takeaway that we all had from this previous week. I'll start with you, Leon. There's some big news about your Giants today that I know you want to react to.
So Jason Garrett is fired as the offensive coordinator, and they bring in Freddie Kitchens, who was a former, I think he came in as an head coach for the Browns at one point, or an offensive coordinator, but I'm glad to see getting a new offensive coordinator in there. The game yesterday against the Buccaneers was just a disaster. Bad play calling all around, too predictable as Jason Garrett. Like I said in the live stream yesterday on our Instagram, it's too predictable. Whenever they have Saquon Barkley back, they go run first play. They should have gone play action because that's where I think they could be more dominant, switching up the play calling. But Daniel Jones struggled. The whole offense struggled. The only real bright spot is how Kadarius Toney can turn negative yardage into positive yardage. So I'm excited to see this new era of New York football, and hopefully we could get some wins in this latter part of the NFL season.
All right, Oscar, I know you. Yeah, what is your key takeaway?
Well, as a local New Jerseyan, I'm kind of happy for them. It was about time. I always thought it was weird that he came over to the Giants after being with the Cowboys. That kind of just was a weird sensation. Like, hey, why do we have this guy on this side? But I mean, just like Leon said, their offense has been stagnant. They've obviously been injury ridden all season long, but the lack of being able to take advantage of a lot of opportunities we've seen, like that season's just been terrible. So hopefully this is a turn in the right direction and better ideas for next season.
Shout out to my friend Gustavo Tomuzelli, who I do Two Americas, Two Countries, All Sports with my other podcast, watching us from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil. Connor, what is your key takeaway from Week 11?
Can I go on a rant real quick?
Go ahead, because I'm also going to go on a rant after you go on a rant.
Okay, dope. So the Bills absolutely crapped themselves this past Sunday, as we all know. They lost 41-15, I think, playing the Indianapolis Colts this past Sunday. They have been the most inconsistent team this past year. Good comment from Polar Knights. Thanks for watching. Yeah, so they lost in a heartbreaking fashion to the Titans on a missed fourth down conversion before the bye week. Then the bye week happens. We all think, hey, maybe they'll do some adjustments. Then our rookie right tackle, Spencer Brown, gets injured. We play the Jaguars. We lose to them somehow, which we should be in jail for. But, it is what it is. And then we beat the Jets, but, they're the Jets, so we're supposed to. And then this past game, one of the most embarrassing losses of the Sean McDermott era. It reminded me a lot of the playoff drought Bills, and I'm from Buffalo, so I know how bad those teams were. And, man, words cannot describe how mad I am at this team. They always say that it's a next man up philosophy whenever injuries happen, but when your depth is as absolutely terrible as it is on that team, man, Cody Ford They should send him to Toronto, play in the CFL. He is that bad. Jesus Christ. He is not an NFL guard. This O-line is trash. Without Starlu Lele, we can't stop the run, as we saw with Jonathan Taylor. He looks like Barry Sanders when he was out there. Not discrediting Jonathan Taylor, though. He's an absolute stud. He's my player of the week, as I'm going to talk about later. But, yeah, you'd think this Colts team was like the greatest show on turf if you watch that game. And they're like 5-5 right now. So, you know, the Bills say they aren't panicking, but the Bills fans are. We're really mad. And if they don't win against the Saints this week, you know, we've already counted out the 1 seed. Like, we thought we were Super Bowl contenders. We are not Super Bowl contenders whatsoever. Maybe we'll make a deep run in the playoffs, but like when everyone's healthy, we can be one of the best teams in the NFL. But when there's one injury, as we saw with Spencer Brown and also Starlu Lele, we're one of the worst teams in the entire league. So get your crap together, Bills. All I'm saying.
All right, now it's time for me to take a turn at the podium, roasting my own team. Of course, the episode name today is All of Our Teams Are Down Bad. And I don't think any team is down as bad this week as the Tennessee Titans. Oh, my God. Anytime when you're down 19-0 to the Houston Texans in a game, it's just a complete and utter failure on all parties involved. Honestly, I got to place most of this blame on Ryan Tannehill. And I understand we don't have Derrick Henry because he's out basically for the season for injury. I know Julio Jones can't stay healthy for more than a week at a time. And then A.J. Brown's going in and out with health issues. But still, when you look at Ryan Tannehill statistically, since he's arrived in Nashville, he has been a top 10 quarterback. Look at efficiency, look at touchdown to interceptions, and all that stuff. But without Derrick Henry, he's looking like the Miami Ryan Tannehill. He looks like the Adam Gase Ryan Tannehill. In this game, he had 4 interceptions. 4. And he's only thrown 3 touchdowns since Derrick Henry left. You know, he threw for only 143 in Los Angeles, threw for 213 last week against New Orleans. Credit, he threw for 323 this last week, but most of that was because they were throwing the ball every single down because they had to. And to be fair for him, he was basically getting no help in the running game. Of course, we had to let go of Adrian Peterson because, as we all knew, he just isn't anywhere close to what he was. I mean, Deontay Foreman is better, and I guess he's going to be the running back that the Titans going to go forward with for the rest of the season, which going from Derrick Henry to Deontay Foreman is like going from the 5-star hotel to a day's inn. It's just not what anyone wants to deal with throughout the course of an NFL season, but it is the hand the Titans have been dealt with. We need A.J. Brown and Julio Jones to come back super, super bad. But even with those two back, I just don't know how good Ryan Tannehill truly is without Derrick Henry, because when we had Derrick Henry, the defenses had to focus a lot of attention on him, which opened up a lot of passing lanes for Ryan Tannehill. Passing lanes that no longer exist. So Ryan Tannehill really is going to have to step up his game immensely, because if we remember in the AFC Championship run a few years ago, Ryan Tannehill only threw for 82 yards at New England. I think he threw for like 150 at Baltimore. He did not do a lot in those games outside of just manage them and hand off the ball to Derrick Henry. He's going to have to help the Titans here win this 1 seed, because we are still the 1 seed. We can still find a way to win. Of course, we got a really tough game this week in New England, which I don't think we're going to win. But you get past that game, you have mostly teams with losing records the rest of the way. The Tennessee Titans are in a fantastic spot to look at this 1 seed because of just how messed the AFC is. The Bills can't get out of their own way. The Patriots still behind by a game. The Ravens can't seem to stay healthy themselves. Still a golden opportunity here for the Tennessee Titans. If we had Derrick Henry, the 1 seed would be ours for the taking, but it clearly just won't be without him unless Ryan Tannehill finds a way to play like the quarterback that statistically we have come to expect from him as a Tennessee Titans fan base. With that, probably
at least your team's over 500.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
Come on, man. It's tough being a Giants fan.
I mean, but the Titans, like, we lose to the Jets, and the last 2 losses of the Tennessee Titans are the Jets and the Texans. I mean, and the last 5 wins are the Saints, the Rams, the Colts, the Bills, and the Chiefs. The Titans are the most backwards team ever. And I hope that trend continues, because if that trend continues, then we'll win the Super Bowl, because apparently we can't lose the teams, except if they're the Arizona Cardinals, who have winning records. I mean, we only have 1 loss this year to a team with winning record. I mean, that's just insane when you really think about it. But moving on to the NFL news segment, Leon, get us kicked off here with our first out of our 5 key stories we're burning on today.
So the game of the year.
Go ahead.
So the game of the year so far, the Chargers beat the Steelers 41-37, but a valiant comeback by Ben Roethlisberger in the fourth quarter for the Steelers to even take the lead at one point. They were up 37-34. Then Justin Herbert throws a dart to Mike Williams, a 50-yard plus touchdown, and they take the lead. So where are the Chargers in this playoff mix? I know they have a good offense, but can their defense really be responsible for helping them get through the AFC playoff matchups?
Yeah, so the Kansas City Chiefs have figured themselves out, which is not good for anyone else in the AFC West. Of course, thankfully, if you're the Chiefs, the Broncos have come back down to earth, and the Raiders have completely fallen apart. So you don't really have to worry about those 2 organizations. You're at least the second best team in the AFC West right now. And whenever they play again, I'm not sure when the Chiefs and the Chargers play again. Let me see. I can look that up real quick. They play in Week 15, December 16th, on a Sunday night. So that'll be a primetime game, which that should be an absolutely fantastic game. I think a lot of this comes down to Kansas City. Can their offense figure it out? Over the last 4 games, they've scored 43 points. Just not the Kansas City we're used to seeing. Now, on the flip side, they found a defense, which is very promising for Kansas City. And if they were able to put it together with both their offense and the defense, they're all of a sudden a championship contender, especially in this AFC, because as crazy as it really seems, there may not be a good team in the AFC, at least not right now. So it's perfect for the Chiefs or the Chargers to make a run at the AFC title. Now, I do think the Chargers' offense right now is far more dynamic. Justin Herbert looked amazing the other night against the Steelers. Austin Eckler was dynamic in that backfield. But the Chargers almost charged it again. Like, letting Pittsburgh get back into that game was inexcusable. I mean, having a blocked punt, going for it at 4-for-1 in your own 35. I mean, I understand the situation, but still the play call going up the middle. Just some really, really bad decisions that gave Pittsburgh some short fields and helped them take the lead in that game. And you had to have Justin Herbert bail you out. So I'm not completely sold on the Chargers still, just because I can't trust them. They're like the Falcons. They're the AFC Falcons. I called them that as much in our TikTok after that game. And I have to trust them in a tight game, especially when they get to that Chiefs-Chargers game on December 16th, before I'm willing to pick them as an AFC West winner. But I think with as bad as the AFC is, they should be able to get at least a wild card spot.
Yeah, I think their defense really showed out, despite the Steelers' offense scoring 37 points. But they did enough to win, obviously. I mean, Asante Samuel Jr. has been a really great pickup in this past year's draft for the Chargers. I think he could still be in the mix for Defensive Rookie of the Year. And this defensive line, while they've been really suspect against the run, they did relatively well, playing the Steelers this past Sunday. Najee Harris had 12 carries for 39 yards with an average of 3.2 yards a carry. We've seen much worse from this Chargers D line in terms of stopping the run, so it's definitely quite an improvement. I mean, we'll see how they do down the stretch. They definitely have some tough games coming up, including against the Chiefs, who seem to have awakened from their slumber, so to speak. I think that they'll definitely make the playoffs for sure. I think they're a really good team. especially as long as Justin Herbert is able to, be more consistent. I know they also experienced a bit of a slump this past 4 weeks. Obviously, they won playing the Eagles, but this was really their bounce back win playing the Steelers at SoFi.
Oscar, what's your thoughts on the Chargers game?
Well, I wouldn't count the Chargers out just yet in terms of the playoffs. I think they can still do it. They have an explosive offense. They're just not as consistent as we'd like to see them. And the Steelers haven't been having a great season either. So this was actually like a game of like not playing down, I think, to your competition, letting the Steelers show out. But I think the Chargers, I think they're still in the running for a good wild card spot. I think they can still definitely do it and get into the playoffs for sure.
Yeah, the Chargers are one of the most interesting teams to watch. And also, not just from the team standpoint, from a fantasy standpoint. I mean, I have both Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler in my team. They saved me. I was down 100 at one point in my game, and they basically they came back and gave me the win. Just an unbelievable fantasy performance. And Austin Eckler, shout out to him, one of the first players really to embrace his role as a fantasy football superstar. Yeah. He had 38 points in PPR. So absolute stud. All right, Leon. What's our
had him last year? Had Eckler last year on my fantasy team. He was amazing. But you guys brought up the Chiefs before, and I think Patrick Mahomes has inserted himself back into the MVP conversation. He now leads the league in passing with 3,200 yards exactly, 25 touchdowns. The 11 interceptions are a bit concerning, but the Chiefs getting back to their winning ways. They just defeated the Dallas Cowboys 19-9. How surprised were you by this score? Because this was mainly a defensive game, and we thought both teams could have gone over 20 points, could have gone over 30 points, could have gone over 40 points. So what are our reactions to this game?
I actually kind of disagree with that description of him being the MVP. I don't think Patrick Mahomes should even be a finalist right now for MVP. I mean, they only put up 19 points the other night. I think someone like a Jonathan Taylor, honestly, right now might have my vote for MVP, and I'm not even joking. Just because of what he's doing right now for Indianapolis. But as I just said a minute ago, I think the Chiefs' defense has more to be credited for their turnaround, because look what they did a couple weeks ago to the Jordan Love Packers. Now what they did to, granted, it was an injured Cowboys team, but it's still the Cowboys. And it's still a really talented team. And early in the season, they would have gone up at least 30 to the same bunch, even with the injuries. So you got to give that side of the ball a lot of credit. And I think if they're going to ultimately win a championship, they're going to have to start playing better on offense. They had some really weird turnovers in the second half, but they still found a way to get it done. And it's all that matters in the NFL. But I think if they're going to beat the Chargers, they will have to have a lot more offensive production comparatively.
I think I agree with Nick. The Cowboys were kind of an injured team. So I don't know how much it was the Chiefs' defense as it was the Cowboys trying to figure out an offense without Amari Cooper and without CeeDee Lamb, and trying to figure out how not to be that one-dimensional. But, I think kind of how we talked about the Chargers. We talked about this before. The Chargers and Chiefs, those are going to be some big teams to try to figure out of their divisions. But we also have some really big – Patriots somehow figuring it out. They're doing a great job. Bill Belichick's figuring it out over there. Sorry, Connor, but they're doing something with their team. The Bills aren't out of it either. They're again, it was a bad week, and we'll do good. But Chiefs, if their offense is just getting in there, we know Christian Clyde-Helaire, he's getting into the game again. So they definitely have a running game. They have some space. Maybe Patrick Mahomes gets some better opportunities with his running game back to normal, how it started at the beginning of the season. They're trying to overpower teams anyway. That was the plan from the beginning of the season. Hey, we're going to have an explosive offense to keep winning games and win through the season, because they never expected to have a good defense. So getting back a lot of the original pieces, I think, is going to be a big jump for Patrick Mahomes for the rest of the season.
Connor.
I honestly don't have much to say. I will give credit where credit's due to the defense, even though the Cowboys' offense was banged up. I think they still limited Dak Prescott pretty well, who was playing at a very high level this past season so far. Definitely still in the running for comeback player of the year. But I think any MVP odds that he had quickly went down the drain after this game. But also Patrick Mahomes didn't really do all that much either. I mean, he's been making some better decisions. I will say that, but I don't think he threw a touchdown that whole game. As far as I could be wrong. And I also think he just threw a pick too. I don't think the Chiefs are world beaters exactly. I still don't think that they're the best team in the AFC by any means. But certainly I think they could win a lot of games coming down the stretch and, make a run for it.
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing with the MVP conversation is just a statistic-based one, not really one of exactly the flow of the games played. But this last story, actually a team that we haven't really talked about on the podcast, the Philadelphia Eagles. They've won 3 straight, and they obliterated the Saints. Trevor Simeon was embarrassing in this game. The only reason the Saints look good on paper is because they did score 22 in the fourth quarter, but Jalen Hurts had 3 rushing touchdowns, and I think he's second to Lamar Jackson in rushing yards in the league. What do we think about this Eagles team sneaking into a possible 6 or 7 seed in the NFC playoff picture?
I definitely do not think it's out of the question whatsoever. I mean, we talk about how muddled the AFC picture is. That the NFC is more clear in terms of who the real contenders are, but the 7th seed is still up for grabs for sure. I mean, the Saints looks like they could be front runners for the 7th seed. I still think it's definitely a possibility for them, but they've been really banged up. During this point of the season, obviously Alvin Kamara's out. Mark Ingram might be out as well. Trevor Simeon got a broken right hand, I think, during that game as well. And I mean, he's not that great either. That's why he's the backup. And then their O-line's really banged up too as well. But their defense, which, I talked about a lot, is it being overrated? No, not overrated. Sorry, underrated. They did not show up whatsoever this game. Jalen Hurts just absolutely ran over them for multiple touchdowns. And while this Eagles team, I still have a lot of questions about Jalen Hurts in terms of, his ability as a quarterback and not just running the ball. I still think that this is a pretty good team, at least offensively. I mean, Devontae Smith has really proven himself to be a wide receiver 1 in the National Football League, and Dallas Goedert, he's a pretty good tight end as well. I think anything's possible, but I would not be surprised if the Eagles were second in the NFC East and ended up with an 8-9 or 9-8 record, and we were able to sneak into the wild card.
But to me, when you take a look at that NFC playoff picture, it's not just a 7 seed; it's a 6 seed too, because you have the Rams there at 5, at 7-3, but behind there you have the Vikings right now 5-5 at number 6, the Saints at 5-5 at 7. Then you've got the 49ers be the first team out, but they're also 5-5. Then you got Eagles, Panthers, and the Washington football team all right behind them within a game. So you really have 6 teams here fighting for 2 spots. And the 2 teams right now that I would like, that I think are the best fits for those 6 and 7, are the Vikings, considering they have really good wins recently against the Chargers and the Packers. They're playing really, really good football right now. That defense seems to be improving somewhat, and they're not great at all, but they're definitely doing enough. And Kirk Cousins has been putting up great numbers all year. I mean, think about some of the games they lost. They lost that game to the Cardinals earlier in the year where they put up 33 points, and Kirk Cousins takes them down the field, gives them a chance to win, but their kicker misses it. And I'm trying to remember what other game it was. I think it was the Bengals that they had right at the beginning where Kirk Cousins had him in running position multiple times, but they missed a field goal. So they really could be 7-3 right now. They have a lot of talent, especially on the offensive side of the football. I think they're playing much better. And then I think the 49ers are going to find their way into the playoffs too. Jimmy Garoppolo, for a guy that has been talked about all year as being, when is Trey Lance going to replace him? Jimmy G is done. This guy has 4 straight games with a pass rating over 100. He is playing some of his best ball right now. And it's like, I think what a lot of people have been talking about is, when you look at Kyle Shanahan's record with and without Jimmy Garoppolo, there is a stark difference. He wins with Jimmy Garoppolo. I still don't really understand what was the rush to replace him outside of just injuries. And I don't think that Trey Lance should be seen as the guy to replace him right now. This is Jimmy Garoppolo's team. I think he is going to lead the 49ers into the playoffs. And I know the Eagles, they're playing better. Jalen Hurts is really starting to get it going. But I just think they have too much youth, and I don't trust them over a more veteran 49ers team and a more veteran Vikings team. The Saints are way too injured. I think they're going to fall off. The Panthers, Cam's a nice story, but if you can't beat the Washington football team, I just don't think you're going to be a serious enough contender in Washington. To me, just doesn't have enough offense. So sign me up for the Vikings and 49ers being the 2 teams with the most potential. I'm forgetting those 2 spots.
Yeah, I mean, like, I root for the 49ers whenever I'm not rooting for the Giants. I think it's just because I'm a big Jimmy G fan. Here's a guy that was in a way drafted to replace Tom Brady, gets traded to the 49ers, I think goes 5-0 in those last starts, and now he's the guy in San Francisco. And if he didn't get injured, he would be a consistent franchise quarterback. So excited to see what they could do in the NFC playoffs.
Yeah, and going back, I think the Eagles versus the Saints. I think the Eagles. I don't know so much about them getting into the playoff picture. I think just like Nick said, like that whole projection is kind of muddled with all those teams trying to vie for viability to make it into the playoffs. But it's definitely interesting to see what they do in terms of development. Jalen Hurts definitely was a good pick. I think they can build around him. I think they have a good wide receiver ability around him. They got a good tight end around him. They're just getting their running game involved into into their game program for the last couple of games, and it's actually helped them a lot in terms of stepping up and giving them options off of Jalen Hurts. So I think looking at this team for this year going into next year, I think it'll be really interesting. Hopefully they get better. But then kind of jumping off that Saints thing, I also wanted to mention the Taysom Hill thing. I don't know if you guys got to see that, how he got that funky contract, depending on whether he gets to be a tight end or a quarterback. That's pretty crazy. That guy, I thought I was like his only fan, but I think the Saints kind of like him probably even more than anybody else thinks can even be justifiable. But good for him, right? It helps that Trevor Simeon's the guy ahead of me, too. For sure.
Yeah, Bills Saints on Thursday night is going to be really, really interesting because it feels like 2 teams are sliding a little bit, but still, I mean, the Bills have to be considered the favorites to win that one just because the Saints are just way, way too injured right now. But that's all the stories for our NFL Key News segment. So now we're going to move on to the thing that we were just actually kind of bringing up there a minute ago. The injury report. Always the most depressing time of the week. Let's figure out what teams' destinies were altered this week with Oscar Orengo.
How you doing, Nick? Thank you. We're just going to go a couple of ones. We've already talked about a few. With Chicago Bears, they kind of lost Justin Fields to rib injury. It seems like Andy Dalton will be the guy starting for him this upcoming week. So something to look forward to, something to keep an eye on. The Jets lost Michael Carter. He's the rookie running back for this season. Kind of look towards Ty Johnson to be the guy who fills in for him. This is their second year back. They had him last year. He's been pretty active in the passing game. So just keep an eye out for Ty Johnson if you have Michael Carter as your player. CeeDee Lamb also got hurt with a concussion. He's going to be in the concussion protocol. It seems like he might not be able to play on Thanksgiving. It's important to note that Cowboys already were missing Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and Cedric Wilson, probably the guys that step up for him. And for the Eagles, we kind of already talked to them a little bit with Justin Fields. Jordan Howard suffered a knee sprain. So we probably think that these will probably be more reps for Miles Sanders and also Boston Scott. So something to keep an eye out there for the upcoming season.
Yeah, so
any injuries to you guys?
Yeah, so to me, out of all of these injuries, to me, definitely when you look at the Cowboys and just how much their offense has struggled this recently, and think about the game they had against the Broncos, the game last week they had against Kansas City. I know they had a great game against Atlanta, but Atlanta's falling apart. They're not any good. This game Thursday against the Raiders is really big, not just for the Raiders, but for the Cowboys. The Cowboys have to get some confidence. Without CD Lamb, that's going to be really hard because Dak Prescott's not 100% right now. And to lack his best target, at least to me, I know some people may argue Amari Cooper is the better target, but to me, at this point, Lamb is a better wide receiver. Like, who do you think is the WR1 in that offense?
It's hard to tell because I think they kind of had alternating the weeks, like where one might be better than the other one. It seems like CeeDee Lamb, I think, has a little bit more dynamism compared to Amari Cooper, especially with Amari Cooper's like injury history that kind of affects him a lot. I think when you're comparing the two.
I think that even though that is a big injury for CeeDee Lamb, they are playing the Raiders this weekend. With the Raiders falling apart, I expect the Cowboys to win. But if Michael Carter, it looks like he's going to be out against the Texans, the Jets and Texans game could be a close one since both teams are horrible. But if Joe Flacco doesn't have Michael Carter to check it down to, Michael Carter is someone that does break first contact. He does have a future in New York, and I think a bright one. How will Flacco do in that game, really? Because the Texans defense just came off a 4-interception performance, and Tyrod Taylor has some momentum. So the Jets without a top running back. Yeah. Connor?
Just a little update. I think Joe Flacco's on the COVID list with Mike White. So it looks like Zach Wilson is going to be coming back and starting that game.
Wait, so if Zach Wilson was completely healthy this weekend, was he not just going to start? Was he not coming back at all?
No, this was Flacco's start, I think.
Wow. So they weren't going to put him back in? Man, way to give up on your number 2 pick. It's just Thanksgiving of his rookie year on a team that doesn't have that much talent.
And what really happened to Josh Johnson? I mean, he threw 317 yards, 3 touchdowns against a really good Colts defense. I wonder what really happened to him.
Yeah, this is why the New York Jets always suck. They make awful personnel decisions from quarterback to quarterback. Like, you draft a guy number 2, don't give up on him 10 games in. I know he hasn't been great, but he's had flashes. Like, especially against my Titans, he looked great in that fourth quarter. Let him develop. Like, Trevor Lawrence hasn't looked great, but the Jacksonville's letting him make mistakes. He's a rookie. Like, I think after Andrew Luck, we've gotten to a point where we expect all rookie quarterbacks to be great. And my friend Gustavo is a big Jets fan, so he is talking about, the Jets. I give up on the Jets. And honestly, I don't blame him because the New York Jets are just a mess of an organization.
The Jets give up on the Jets.
Yeah, exactly. The Jets need to stop giving up on themselves. If you're going to ever succeed at anything, you can never give up on yourself, and you can never give up on your future. And Zach Wilson could be your future, but you got to let him have time. You got to give him at least 2 to 3 years. Give him better support.
It's not going to work.
It didn't help that they moved on from Sam Darnold to draft alt-right Sam Darnold. All I'm going to say.
Exactly. I agree. What was the whole point of bringing him away?
I'm so sorry. That was a really annoying laugh, but yeah, I understand it's New York too. I'm just in Tennessee, right? Like, I know it's a brutal media market too that they got to deal with, but still.
Zach Wilson. If Zach Wilson starts, Elijah Moore is not really going to have that big of a game because Elijah Moore has shown more productivity with Mike White and with Joe Flacco. So expect the passing game not to be big. And without Michael Carter, Texans might be able to only keep them to like 10 points probably.
Yeah, what do y'all think about that comment? I mean, Mark Sanchez, if you really think about it, I know everyone runs him for the butt fumble, but he got the Jets to 2 straight AFC title games. You know, I mean, granted the defense carried those teams, but still he did enough to help those teams. I mean, He really is. You think about the
That's
best
exactly what I was
quarterback
gonna go.
probably this
Next
century.
week, tell me Rex Ryan was the key.
Rex Ryan was not the key.
Sign Mark
Exactly.
Sanchez. Sign him. He's 35, 36. He could still play.
No,
I think
But
he's
Adrian Peterson could still
football
play at 36. Mark Sanchez could still play.
I
think
think he
that
calls
you
him.
might as well bring back Tony Romo and Eli Manning just because they're all NFL analysts.
Maybe they should bring back Joe Namath. Maybe he could loosen up the old arm. I mean, he's only like 65, right?
Right. Bring back
I
Chad.
think he's 77.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know someone's got to be able to throw a football. I mean, New York City has 8 million people in it. There's got to be someone. Yeah, maybe hashtag comeback Mark Sanchez from Gustavo. Maybe you can get one of the Knicks players or something to help him
Oh,
out.
they could trade for Geno Smith. He's still in the league. So
Maybe LeBron James will finally come to New York. So it'll just be for the New York Jets.
I remember watching Geno Smith whenever I was a lot younger, and it was the most painful thing to watch, even though I'm a Giants fan, because he would have like 2 good weeks, and then it would be like, where's the first down? Like, not even one first down the game. It's just mind-boggling. Maybe trade for Fitzpatrick. He got them to 10-6, but they didn't make the playoffs. So we'll see.
Yeah, the Jets certainly have a long way to go for their organization. The next segment here that we're going to go into is a little bit more fun than the injury segment. Of course, not real catastrophic injuries this week. It feels like this is the first week in a while that we haven't had like a catastrophic, knock on wood, because we don't want Thanksgiving to turn into a bloodbath. But it is time for some fantasy football with you, Oscar. Who were some of the top
How
performers
about we
this week?
talk about the guys like following the Thanksgiving theme? They had a buffet because we got Jonathan Taylor, who had 32 rushes for 185 yards and 5 touchdowns, 3 catches, 19 yards against the Bills. Sorry, Connor, again. In standard scoring, we got 50 points for his team. Austin Eckler, great game. Leon mentioned it before, 11 rushes for 50 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. 6 catches and 2 touchdowns in the air against the Steelers. Total blowout game, and it was it wasn't a blowout game, but it was a high scoring game. Justin Herbert, kind of see that little ping pong with Austin Eckler. 30 passes for 382 yards. He rushed 9 times for 90 yards, so he got you some points on the ground as well. Aaron Rodgers, still trying to kind of will the Packers into a win, but didn't work out so well. 23 passes for 385 yards, 4 touchdowns. Unfortunately, Jalen Hurts always coming through and doing his work on the ground. If he doesn't even get you points in the air, 147 yards in the air, no touchdowns, but he rushes 18 times for 69 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground against New Orleans Saints. So those are 5 top guys. We talked about all the guys. I don't know if anybody has anything to add about maybe Jonathan Taylor or Aaron Rodgers and their performances this week. And Jonathan Taylor is like killing the league, running through everybody.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. Rodgers threw 4 touchdowns, played really well, but they didn't win, but he still played fine. I'd put most of that on the defense, but looking forward, the Packers are definitely in a solid position heading into the playoffs.
if your fantasy team is absolute crap right now, I would give up a king's ransom for Jonathan Taylor. I think that was like his 6th or 7th game in a row where he rushed for like over 100 yards and a touchdown, which like does not happen very often. Definitely the best running back in the league right now that Derrick Henry's injured, but like that dude is a workhorse. He is tough, man.
You know what's incredible is that we're going to get to watch Derrick Henry versus Jonathan Taylor here for a couple of years, twice a year. And just the AFC South is bringing back old school football. And honestly, even though I don't like the Colts, obviously as a rival, I am kind of rooting for Jonathan Taylor because I would love for him to jump in that MVP conversation and get running backs back a seat at the table because obviously Derrick Henry was on his way. I think right now, if he were still on his way, if he's still healthy, he'd be the MVP favorite right now. But since Henry is out, I would love to see Jonathan Taylor get back into that conversation Because if he can go out there and potentially win MVP, then that could potentially set the stage for a Derrick Henry comeback if he's able to come back to what he was to be an MVP candidate himself. So it's kind of opening the door, right? If it can't be my guy, then maybe it can be the other one. And Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor are still proving that even in the modern passing league, that is the NFL, running backs are still very, very important.
Yeah, I mean, also Carson Wentz's morale on this team's a lot better. Even on the sidelines, you could see, even though he's masked and everything, his body language, he just looks happier on the Colts than he did with the Eagles. He was just miserable last year on that team, and it was difficult for him. It was difficult for the fans to watch the inconsistency, but he sort of looks reborn in Indianapolis, and I think they're going to make the playoffs. I really do.
Yeah, I'm starting to get worried too because the Titans can't get it together. They could still come back and win the division because right now they're at 6-5. At 5-5, the Titans are at 8-3. Remember, the Titans have already swept them, so the Titans would have to finish with a worse record. So right now the magic number for the AFC South is 4. So they have to basically have a combination of the Titans win a couple of games, the Colts lose a couple of games. Every time the Titans win a game or the Colts lose, a number goes down. So yeah, for example, the Titans and the Colts were to win the next 2, Colts were to lose the next 2, then it'd be a wrap. But with the way both teams are playing right now and their upcoming opponents, I don't quite think that's going to be a case because the Colts do have a favorable stretch themselves down the road. All right, but we're kind of got sidetracked there. Just kind of looking at some of these fantasy performances because we talked a lot about Jonathan Taylor. Of course, Eckler and Herbert together were absolutely dynamic. It's really interesting to see the Chicago's receivers doing well this week and they did better with Andy Dalton than they did with Justin Fields. And it really is just a topsy-turvy situation in Chicago because Justin Fields is your future. But Andy Dalton right now clearly seems to be the more competent quarterback, the quarterback that gives you the best chance to win. But you're 3-7. You have a really, really outside shot for the playoffs. I know you get Detroit this week, so you can get to 4-7, maybe. Although I honestly feel like Detroit's going to win that game and get their first one on Thanksgiving. What would you do, especially if you're Matt Nagy, because other reports are circulating that he's lost the locker room. I mean, his son, I don't know if you saw the clip, but his son, who is a quarterback for a local high school in the Chicago area, was literally getting booed and getting basically having fire Matt Nagy chants thrown at him during his high school playoff game. So not a good situation at all to be Matt Nagy or his family right now in Chicago. But what should Nagy do? Because it feels like his job is just done regardless. But, if you still have the best interest of the organization at mind, what are you doing with that quarterback situation?
I would start Nick Foles. I would try to get him more involved because we haven't seen him this season, and I still think that he has value to the NFL.
I'm still starting Justin Fields personally. He looked like absolute crap. Like his first couple starts, obviously. When he played the Browns, that defense looked like it was the 2000 Ravens or the 85 Bears, which they're not. They only have like a couple good guys on defense. But however, Justin Fields actually has improved quite a bit in his most recent starts, especially in that Monday night game against the Steelers. Obviously they didn't win, but he almost helped them make a comeback. I think that if there's like some confident play calling, obviously not from Matt Nagy, but from someone else in that coaching staff, then I feel like they could help Justin Fields develop a little bit, kind of offset the bleeding from Matt Nagy being anywhere around him whatsoever. So I still think that Justin Fields, with his upside, it gives them the best chance to win. They already know who Nick Foles is. As he played for them last year, benching Mitch Trubisky for him. And Andy Dalton's Andy Dalton. I think he's completely cooked. There's a reason why he was struggling to find a job in the NFL after he was cut from the Bengals. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that quarterback situation in Chicago.
But will Fields recover in time from the rib injury for Thursday? Is he scheduled to start or no?
Nah, Andy Dalton
I
starting.
think so.
Like,
I mean, if they were like in the midst of a playoff run, maybe you start him. Maybe you try to get him back on there. But you're 3-7. I don't think that jeopardizing his health for any reason right now makes any sense. You only play him when he's 100% healthy. But when he is healthy, he needs to be on the field, continuing his development. Because, like I've said with Zach Wilson, with Trevor Lawrence, he's a rookie quarterback. And the only rookie quarterback in a good situation this year is Mac Jones. And surprise, surprise, Mac Jones is actually playing well because he has a good situation around him. So I really think that Justin Fields on the field as much as possible is key, but not this week because he's just not 100%. But anyway, Oscar, looking forward to this next week of fantasy football. Who is your waiver wire picks?
I think we got a couple. I already mentioned Ty Johnson due to the Michael Carter injury. Like I said, he's going to be involved in the passing game. If the Jets stuck behind, game stretch might play a role in there, so he might be able to make a big difference there. Even you never know. With the Cardinals, Rondo Moore, kind of a little bit part of my takeaway with earlier in today's podcast. The Cardinals are awesome. Next guy up the whole time. Kyler Murray is not available. Colt McCoy's the guy who steps up. DeAndre Hopkins is not available. Rondo Moore steps up. We know they went on. They got Zach Ertz. They got a lot of depth within this team, and Rondo Moore is definitely getting action. He's one of those guys that would kind of been a sleeper throughout the season. He's finally getting to be a little bit more consistent. One thing to kind of mention though is like he's getting all this action, and it's with Colt McCoy as his quarterback. It's probably something to keeping an eye on. Whether Kyler Murray comes back, and also when DeAndre Hopkins comes back as well. And for the Panthers, I mean, this is awesome. Cam Newton is back. He's making an impact for the team. He's slightly raising playoff hopes, but he's effective. He's still effective on the ground, so he has a chance. So those are three guys. Nick, did you have the staff pick?
Yes. So one player I want to definitely shout out who I don't know if you guys really brought up on this podcast is the Washington football team's Deandre Carter, wide receiver. He has a 3-game touchdown streak. Now, granted, he's not getting that many targets. He had 6 targets at the Broncos, 6 targets against the Bucks, and 3 targets last week against the Panthers. But in every single one of those games, he had a touchdown catch, and that is something to definitely keep an eye on. You know, he seems to be able to get into the end zone, which provides some value. If you're in an absolute desperate situation, wide receiver just want to add some depth, maybe that's an option for you to take a look at. But thank you, Oscar, for the injury report and the fantasy reports. But now it is time for everyone's favorite segment of the week. It's time to make some money. Connor, what games are you eyeing this week to help us all with our sports gambling?
Well, like every week, I got 4 matchups. NFL Week 12, and I'm going to be starting with this Los Angeles Rams versus Green Bay Packers game. The Packers are favored by 1 point, and the over-under right now is 48. Now, the Rams are coming off a bye week following a very tough loss to their division rival 49ers, where the Niners held them to only 10 points. And they also lost the game prior to the Derrick Henry-less Titans. Now, the Packers just recently lost to the Vikings this past Sunday. While Aaron Rodgers threw for 4 touchdowns, their defense regressed from their stellar performance these past couple games prior to that. Now, these are 2 of the best teams in the NFC, so it's a pretty hard game to pick. But personally, I'm going to pick the Rams, as the Packers beat off offensive line is going to struggle with Aaron Donald and Von Miller on that Rams D-line. And Cooper Kupp is going to burn Kevin King. Now I'm going to move on to the Minnesota Vikings versus the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners are favored by 3 points, and the over-under is 48.5. Now, the Vikings, like I talked about earlier, they just beat the Packers this past Sunday with a game-winning field goal, which usually doesn't happen for them. And when their offense is firing on all cylinders and their defense plays to their potential, they're a pretty good team, honestly. And the 49ers are on a win streak, upsetting the Rams and beating the absolute crap out of the Jaguars. Now, I think this is going to be a close game, but what it will come down to is, one, the Vikings' ability to stop the run, which I don't really trust, honestly. And I also think that the 49ers defense is steadily improving over this past month, and they can limit the Vikings offense more than the Packers did this past Sunday. So I'm going to pick the San Francisco 49ers to win this matchup. Matchup number 3 that I'm going to talk about, the Seattle Seahawks are going to face off against the Washington football team. The Seahawks are favored by 1 point, and the over-under is 46.5. Now, Seattle's season is all but over at 3-7, and the Pete Carroll era is coming to a depressing finish. Meanwhile, the football team season is probably over as well, but they've been gaining positive momentum, and they've been winning their last couple games, playing the Buccaneers and Panthers, and Heineke's been playing pretty well also, and there's been improvement in secondary as well. And I also think Heineke threw for like 9 touchdowns and 1 interceptions these past couple games. So that's really great improvement on Taylor Heineke's part. Now, with how bad the Seahawks defense is, aside from Jamal Adams, that guy's a stud. We all know that. I'm going to pick Washington for the upset here. I think their passing game is really great. Obviously, Scary Terry is a great wide receiver 1. And their run game's pretty good too. Shout out Jared Patterson, by the way. He's running back 3 on the Washington football team. He's been doing pretty well there. UB grad. So yeah, I'm going to pick the Washington football team to improve to 4-7. All right, I think that's the record. Hopefully I'm right. After this game. Now this next matchup, the last one I'm going to be talking about, it's going to be Thanksgiving primetime matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the New Orleans Saints. The Bills are still favored by 4.5 points, and the over-under is 46.5. Now, the Bills lost playing the Colts on Sunday. I already talked about it. Don't want to beat a dead horse, but they sucked. And the Saints are also coming off an embarrassing loss as Jalen Hurts ran all over them on Sunday. Now, the important thing to note about this game, both teams are banged up. So what this will come down to, in my opinion, is to who will be able to come back and play this Thursday and who won't be on the field. Now it's looking like Bills linebacker Tremaine Edmonds will come back from his hamstring injury this Thursday, which will significantly help this defense that was absolutely terrible on Sunday. And if the run-stuffing 1-tech D-tackle Starlou Lele comes back from the COVID reserve list, fingers crossed, then it'll be much harder for the Saints offense to get anything going. Now, rookie right tackle Spencer Brown will also not play. And as he's been anchoring this O-line lately, the bleeding on their line will continue. And it doesn't look like guard John Feliciano will be coming back from IR this week either, after he became eligible to come back from injured reserve this week. Now, on the Saints, Trevor Simeon is set to play with a broken right hand. And it's not looking like Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram are going to play, alongside their starting right tackle Ryan Ramczyk, which significantly hurts their offense. With how good this Saints D is and how bad this Bills O-line is without Brown and Feliciano, this game could honestly go either way. Despite all this, I'm going to pick the better defense and the QB without the broken hand. Bills, please, for the love of God, don't mess this up.
And one of the, looking at just the Thanksgiving slate, perhaps the most interesting this line here is over under in the Bears Lions 41.5. It's rare to see an over under that low, and it definitely feels warranted for that game. But when you see an over under that low, part of me wants to take the over there just because I remember last year you had the Saints and the Broncos, I believe, when the Broncos had no quarterbacks. And they had to bring in the wide receiver off the practice squad to start. And it was like 36, which was insanely low. But it hit. The over hit. Would you be tempted to take the over in that one?
I mean, it wouldn't be the worst bet, honestly. I mean, I don't think the Lions will help you out that much in terms of putting points on the board. I know that this Bears organization is in complete turmoil, and there's a lot of leaks saying that Matt Nagy's last game might be this week. Makes sense, short week. They didn't really have anyone else. But at the same time, I don't know. They're playing the Lions. If they win that game, then I still think Nagy will stay. But what do I know? I think the Bears offense could still put up a good amount of points, in order to, help bettors be more confident in betting on the over. Obviously, David Montgomery's a stud. Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney are two of the most underrated wide receivers out there. And with Andy Dalton, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. So, I mean, who am I to say? But I think that this over would be a good bet. Definitely not the worst one that you could do.
Yeah, definitely a lot of people looking to make some money while they are waiting on or eating their Thanksgiving dinners. Just looking at the games that you were discussing, definitely the Rams-Packers, that could be an NFC Championship game preview potentially, although the Rams have not looked as good recently. Obviously the Packers get that nod being at home. I feel like if the Rams were at home, maybe they would be a favorite. Over under a 48, that would kind of suggest like a 24-23-ish game. I don't know. I feel like it'd be a little bit higher there. Like, I feel like that'd be another game too where I might take over.
Yeah, honestly, if I were in Vegas, I probably would have set it at like 52, like 55 or something like that. I mean, these are two of the best offenses in the entire league. As we saw on Sunday, obviously, Aaron Rodgers threw for 4 touchdowns. Their ground game is great also. With A.J. Dillon really picking up where Aaron Jones left off. Obviously, one of, if not the best wide receiver in the entire league with Devontae Adams. And the Rams are really good too. There's some games where they've been inconsistent. And Matt Stafford reverts back to some of his bad habits from back in Detroit. But, their ground game is pretty solid too. Obviously, the Stafford to Cup connection cannot be understated. And I think, with these past couple weeks, OBJ, learning this playbook in Los Angeles a bit more, knowing what's going on in terms of that offense, I think we could see him having a greater presence within that Rams offense, especially since Robert Woods is out for the entire season. And especially considering that Packers defense, I mean, they made Kirk Cousins look like Peyton Manning. So, I think Matt Stafford could definitely bounce back in this game, but I also think Aaron Rodgers will do really well. Maybe they could go like over 60 if we're being honest here. So I think that would be a way safer bet if you're weighing that in the Bears and Lions over under. But yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
Gonna be a very fun matchup to watch, and I think I'm very interested in seeing this MVP battle, how it will pan out, because I know that Stafford is, I would say he's a top 3 contender for MVP. I'd say Brady's up there. Mahomes, even though with the interceptions and whatever, he has inserted himself back in there with stats. Rodgers does have 21 touchdowns to 4 interceptions this season, so we'll see what happens after this game. I'm definitely expecting a high-scoring game. I'm expecting Odell Beckham to actually put up some numbers since he is getting acclimated to this new offense. So we'll see.
I feel like some of the off-the-field stuff's going to hurt Aaron Rodgers just because I feel like there's going to have a lot of people who won't vote for him off a principle, but that's not necessarily football-related stuff. That's just going to be a extracurricular stuff that's going to, I think, prevent him from being a serious contender at this point. Oscar, do you have any comments to make on any of these lines?
I don't. I'm kind of looking forward to the Rams-Packers game. I think kind of like what Leon said, I think it's going to be a good game. And definitely we're going to see those Thanksgiving games. I want to see how the – oh, shit. I want to see how the Saints do and the Bills do. And we'll have some fun. We'll get to be able to watch some fun football.
Yeah, so with that being said, let's get into one of the final segments for the week. It's going to be Player of the Week. I'll start with you, Leon. Who impressed you the most here in Week 11?
So I try to spread the love during the player of the week. In normal circumstances, I'd choose Jonathan Taylor, but I'm going to go with Austin Eckler this time. 4 total touchdowns. He had 60 yards receiving, 50 yards rushing, so over 100 scrimmage yards and leading the Chargers to that victory. So great on them, and I'm looking forward to his performance improving and leading them into the AFC playoff run.
Oscar, who is your player of the week?
Well, I got Jalen Hurts. I kind of really like that dynamic of that quarterback who can run, put some points on the ground. He definitely fits that young quarterback trying to figure out. He seems pretty scrappy. He went for 147 yards. He rushed for 3 touchdowns. It's a lot of fun to watch him going on the road to New Orleans and being able to do that. Mark on the game.
Connor, who is your player of the week?
All right, so I'm going to go with the obvious one here. Colts running back Jonathan Taylor. He absolutely curb stomped the hell out of that Bills defense. 32 carries, 185 yards, averaging 5.8 yards a carry with 4 rushing touchdowns. Also 3 receptions on 3 targets for 19 yards and an extra touchdown to add on to that stat line. Absolute monster. Won a lot of people in their fantasy leagues this week.
Yeah, another player for my player of the week that helped me win personally, Justin Herbert. I mean, what an incredible performance. He had not been playing well the past couple of weeks, but really turned it up. 30 of 41 for 382, 3 touchdowns. I mean, threw it kind of low, but I mean, it was a fluke play when he got that interception. And what's kind of underrated here is he ran for 90 yards as well. Really helped move the chains with his legs multiple times throughout that game. Just had the Chargers going up and down the field. And him and Austin Eckler together, just a dynamic duo. If they can do that consistently, the Chargers, to me, may be the best offense in the entire league if they do that consistently. They're not consistent, and that's the problem with the Chargers. All right, Leon, I know you want to talk about some game picks that we have for the Bills and Saints on Thursday Night Football, that special Thanksgiving night game.
Yeah, so I think we're all in agreement that we want the Bills to win and that the Bills will win. Nick says the Bills will win 20-17. Connor 20-13. Oscar 31-16. I think the Bills defense will have a shutout this game. This is bold, but based on their injuries, I think they're going to have a shutout. I'm going to go either 27-0 or 30-0 Bills. I think they come back from that loss.
That's bold. That's bold.
This might be, I think this, if they get this will be their 3rd shutout of the season. They have 2 right now, right, Connor?
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, I think they can get it.
Trevor Simeon has been playing decently. I know he didn't play great against Philadelphia, but he played well in Tennessee. I don't know. The Saints, even with a backup quarterback, that's a tough team. To play in the Louisiana. I know it's technically the Caesar Superdome. We're not paid by Caesars. I'm not going to call it that. It's the Louisiana Superdome. It'll always be that to me. I don't know. But I do think the Bills will win. I think it'll be a tight defensive game. Maybe not the most exciting game. I honestly will probably be watching more Mississippi State and Ole Miss on Thursday night because I think that'll be an exciting rivalry game in the state of Mississippi. But before we head on out, do we have any last comments, questions, just any last lingering things we want to wrap up on?
Best wishes for Matt Nagy's son. Tough scene.
Yeah, that was just awful. I understand people in Chicago are not happy with Matt Nagy, but don't take it out on his son. His son's just trying to play. He has nothing to do with the front office in Chicago. Just let it be. Let him play his game. And I understand that was the other opposing student section, and they're supposed to make him uncomfortable. So that's fine. It's not like you're chanting like on their dead mother or something, but you know, it's still not a great look. If there are any adults chanting that's really not a good look. High school students, okay, you can kind of let it slide. Just hopefully there were no adults chanting that because that would be a bad look.
You know, in his defense, since Matt Nagy's son is a quarterback, he could probably run an offense better than Matt Nagy can.
Yeah, that high school offense is probably better. The Northwestern offense is probably better than the Chicago Bears offense right now. Although they're not having a good season of their own.
One last thing to watch out for. I know we didn't talk about it in this podcast because we were too focused on the losing side of this matchup, but the Miami Dolphins have won 3 straight matchups, and they face the Carolina Panthers this week. Maybe the Dolphins win 4 straight, and they get back into making the AFC more of a playoff mess. So we'll see what happens from there, how Tua develops. Jalen Waddle looks nice, but he's going to be overshadowed by other rookies, including Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts, and Mac Jones. So let's see how that Tagovailoa-Waddle connection develops throughout this latter part of the season.
Yeah, I mean, they would need some teams to collapse because right now the 7th seed would be the Bills at 6-4. So you'd really need some teams to collapse down the stretch for the Dolphins. Like if they were in the NFC, they'd be right there at 4-7, which is insane to think about. But I just think they lost too much too early because you're probably going to need 9 wins, I think, to get in to the playoffs this year in the AFC. Not as crazy as last year because last year you needed 11 wins to be in. But it's going to be a fun race. I'm excited to kind of cover it. If y'all, of course, we're going to have these weekly shows now at 10 p.m. on Tuesdays. I'll definitely like this time a lot better. We're not having to focus on a game going on at the same time. And we're able just to kind of take in everything and just kind of sit here and just kind of get ready for the next week. But throughout the week, we do Instagram Lives. Any combination of us, we may bring on special guests as well. But for the Thursday, Sunday, and Monday nights, we're not going to do it this week just because it's the Thursday this week just because it's Thanksgiving. We're all going to be eating dinner, hanging out with our families. But we'll be back Sunday and Monday night on our Instagram at InstaReviewPod. We do kind of a 30-minute show before Sunday and Monday, kind of recapping the day, just what our initial takeaways are, kind of a bit of a preview of what you're going to see here on more formal shows. Sometimes what we'll do also on our TikTok account, which is at InstaReviewPodcast, is we'll kind of do in-game highlights, do some in-game commentary, kind of our in-the-moment reactions to what we're seeing. And what we'll do sometimes is also do a post-game reaction. Like I did post-game reaction last week to Patriots, Falcons, and Chargers, Steelers. Just what were my initial thoughts on the results, what they mean for the teams, what it means for the playoffs. I know Leon has a weekly segment where he highlights a player every single week, and we're definitely working to get more content out on TikTok, and also some of those videos get put out on our Instagram as well. But for these weekly shows, you can watch us on our YouTube. Subscribe to us at Interview Podcast. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a show. We just open up our Twitch account, which is at Interview Podcast. So you can go watch us there if you prefer Twitch. Also follow us on Twitter at Interview Podcast, where you can watch the shows there as well. An exciting new era. Thank you all for joining us for the first Tuesday night edition of this show. We'll be back next week for week 12 of Interview Podcast, where we review all NFL news, give our analysis as we head first right into playoff season. Because when the holidays ring, it only means one thing. When the playoffs start, the playoffs are almost about us. For Leon Taryan, Conor Kennedy, and Oscar Orengo, this has been the Instant Review Podcast. Take care, and we'll see you next time.